Wherever you are right now, it's no doubt that our world has been completely turned upside down. Just a few months ago, none of us could ever have imagined that we would be where we are today. Which is why it makes it so easy to forget about the other unprecedented events, tragedies that took place in 2020. In January alone, we heard news of the catastrophic bushfires there in Australia. 4 major volcanic eruptions in the Philippines, Japan, Mexico and Ecuador. Devastating earthquakes worldwide, with hundreds more recorded by the US Geological Survey. And on top of all of that, the continued suffering and hardship of billions of people worldwide. And let me repeat, all of this in just the first month of the year. But what you're seeing here also took place in the same month. It's the response of millions of Iglesia de Cristo members around the world, united in an initiative launched by the executive minister of the Iglesia de Cristo called My Countrymen, My Brethren. A drive to provide emergency aid to our fellow men during times of crisis, but also to share the message of true hope during these times of hopelessness and uncertainty. In the early days of the coronavirus outbreak, before all of the restrictions and lockdowns, the INC team travelled to the other side of the world to witness the response of the Church of Christ to the catastrophic Australian bushfires. We just touched down in Melbourne, here in Australia. Judging by the way it looked outside the window, it looked like the place is covered in fog. Hey, Brother Andrew!
Welcome to Australia.
Yeah! I don't know if you can see it, but it looks foggy, but that's not fog. That's the actual smoke from the forest fires. That's how severe it is.
The fires are about 300 to 400 kilometers away too.
Really? That's far, isn't it? You can smell the smoke too, yeah. You can smell it, you can see it.
You can smell the smoke.
And when we hit the road, the street lights were barely cutting through the smoke. Even the massive skyline of Melbourne City was hidden by it, only made visible when we cranked up the exposure on the cameras. Whenever you're outside, you can smell the smoke. You can't escape it, especially now that we're moving closer toward where the actual fires are. I mean, look, you can't even see the horizon. The car in front of us is Brother Andrew Fisher, one of the ministers in the district, along with the district minister, Brother Romeo Beltran. We're on our way to one of the evacuation centres, a place called Gippsland, about 4.5 hours away from the city centre in Melbourne. And we're going to coordinate with some of the organisers on how we can conduct this Aid to Humanity event, so we can assist many people who have lost so much. In the days prior to our arrival, the ecclesiastical districts in Australia had already been in contact with different organisations to discuss with them how the Church of Christ could assist. It was estimated that the fires had already destroyed almost 3,000 homes throughout Australia, leaving thousands of families with nothing at all. However, the massive response of the public in Gippsland created a surplus in donated food and clothing at that specific centre. Cash is what they needed at Gippsland to prop up the volunteer emergency services and support groups. Brother Romy told me that when he expressed the church's desire to make a number of cash donations to different charities, initially he wasn't taken so seriously. And it's because churches are usually the charities seeking aid during times of tragedy. After our meeting at Gippsland, we stopped by a small town. It's a Tuesday, but driving through the town, you could barely see anybody walking outside.
This place is usually a holiday destination.
Yeah.
Summer right now. School holidays, they should be out here. They even have a little theme park, but because they're closed.
It wasn't closed. There was just no one there. In place of what should have been the sights and sounds of children playing, was the mechanical hum of the empty rides. I know images like these of empty streets and deserted parks have become the norm today, especially with all of the lockdown and quarantine measures. But you have to remember, just months ago, no one had ever seen or experienced anything like this before. As we drove deeper, the smoke grew so thick, it made the midday sun look like it does at sunset. More roads were closed and we were coming across fire warning signage more frequently.
Is this highway closed?
Then almost in an instant, the lush greenery that surrounded us for most of our journey disappeared. The mood changed to one of emptiness, but we couldn't put our finger on it. It was only when we saw the burnt road signs did we realize where we were and what we were seeing. The aftermath of one of history's most destructive fires. Yeah, it's probably been a couple of weeks already since the fires, but look at the devastation. So you can imagine the fire on both sides of this road, no? Like walls of fire. You can imagine. You know what's really eerie about this place? It's how lifeless it is. A place like this would usually be teeming with life. The sound of the birds chirping, the song, the crickets, the insects. But there's nothing. There's actually no sound apart from, you know, a few buzzing flies and cars driving along the road. And all of these trees, they look like coal. Once the church administration gave the instruction to go ahead with the My Countrymen, My Brethren activities, thousands of brethren throughout Australia mobilized in one spirit, in full force, to help out not only the victims of the bushfires, but to anyone else who was in need of it. In the District Office of Australia East, weeks of planning for the distribution of care packages across multiple venues was finally put into action, along with the preparation of the main venue there in Sydney. Upon instruction of the church administration, brethren started stocking up on all kinds of provisions for their fellow men in need. Meanwhile, back in Melbourne, the brethren were preparing the venue at Melton, where the cash donations would be presented.
This project aims to help our countrymen who are in need. But Jesus answered, the scripture says, human beings cannot live on bread alone. More than food and anything else, we need the words of God.
And thanks to Brother Eduardo for supporting this and supporting everybody here, and for financial assistance he's given to put this on.
Is Jody Griffin. Thank you for joining us. And she's from the Victorian State Emergency Services.
I'd like to thank the Church of Christ, your Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo B. Manolo, and your brethren for this very gracious donation.
It's quite lovely to see the amount of people that will go above and beyond to assist their fellow humans. That helps to assist with the relief recovery efforts, also helps with the homeowners to assess what type of damage is not only to their houses and to their property, but also stock.
This is just wonderful, and I mean, whatever I take home tonight to distribute is a bonus, and it's going to help more people.
And it's just fantastic to see what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you everybody. I am absolutely delighted to be here today.
So the Church of Christ again, as I know and you know, will be playing a significant role in supporting those who've been caught up in this bushfire catastrophe. So we're very, very proud as a council to be associated with the Church of Christ. We really are. The message to the Church of Christ is, we are so proud of you. You're playing a significant role. Continue to do God's work. Continue to do Jesus' work. People love everything you do.
Everybody's happy, not only the recipients of the church's aid, but also the brethren who participated, knowing that we played a part in this very successful and helpful activity. It's funny how a situation like ours today, being in lockdown, helps us to appreciate moments like that spent together. Sadly, those activities in Australia were our last before the lockdown. During our time there in Australia, the news of the coronavirus wasn't yet taken so seriously. Everyone thought it was something that would soon blow over. So you can imagine our surprise when, on our return to London, almost everyone was wearing masks. We wondered if we were supposed to be wearing them too, but we couldn't find any, anywhere. Little did we know that in just a few weeks, our world would never be the same again. A world no government was prepared for, with new challenges and hardships that would turn our lives completely upside down. But in the midst of fear and uncertainty, the Executive Minister of the Church of Christ gave an instruction that would once again rouse the resolve of God's people in these darkest of times. The church was quick to respond, with every congregation supporting early government policies to control the virus, eventually migrating worship services to live streaming. Hundreds of tons of emergency food aid distributed all around the world. Millions in cash and PPE donated to hospitals and city governments. 50,000 face masks. These will be distributed to various hospitals and care homes throughout the country. And the use of the Ciudad de Victoria to house the Philippines' largest mass quarantine facility. It's inevitable that tragedies will continue. But one thing also is for certain. So will the work of the church.